welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another true crime video. Anyway, this is actually a continuation of the, well, not a continuation of the video, but a continuation of the look that I was doing in the other video discussing Mr. Meria and his obsession with killing elderly women. Today we're actually here to talk about Miss Brenda Wanjiru Kaguru, another woman who was, let me not even say woman, because this girl was not even a woman. This was a child who was very much so also giving obsession with killing a specific type of person, and that is people who were members of her family of a specific type of age group. And without further ado, let us get right into this video. A few disclaimers. First of all, I mean no disrespect to anybody that I talk about in this video. Second of all, anything that I say in this video comes from sources that I have found online. I will link those sources down below in the description box. I would just like to add that this case has not been concluded. This is just a case I saw online. I will put down the sources down below, obviously, as I usually do, but this is a disclaimer that this case has not been concluded. Everything said in this case is alleged, an allegation, because a court of law has not yet settled it. Thank you. Third of all, I would also like to warn or put out some caution for any of you who are uncomfortable with the following themes. First is the issue of the murder of children, the gruesome murder of children, or just murder in general. If you don't feel comfortable with any of those issues or any of those things, please log out right now and I will see you in another video. So who is Brenda Wanjiru Kaguru? Now, Brenda is a 15-year-old girl. Like, when this case takes place, Brenda is 15 and she was born in the Gikambura area. So I do assume that she was born in 2008. I'm not so great at math, but I tried to do my calculations and it came up to 2008. Brenda was the firstborn to her parents, Peter Kaguru Gishuhi, and his wife, Catherine Wamboi Juguna. I don't know. I found actually in a lot of the cases I do, like when I talk about the parents to the people that I'm discussing, a lot of them don't have the same surnames, which is very interesting because a lot of the Western cases, like, they usually share surnames. So that's a very interesting thing to find out, that a lot of people actually don't, you know, just ditch their maiden names when they get married. Anywho, moving on. Brenda was born into a family of 4 children and she had 3 younger siblings. She was the eldest of all 4 of them. The one after her was called Rachel Wanjiru and she was 7.5 years old, followed by Valeria Mudhoni, who was aged 5, followed by Liam Gishuhi, the only boy in the family, who was 1 year and 3 months 1 year and 3 months years old. Does that make sense to say it like that? Yeah. So he was pretty young, to say the least. Now, there wasn't so much information on her childhood, which kind of tells me that it wasn't as traumatic, because usually when people have such, you know, horrible childhoods, it's usually very much so documented, I guess. But I don't also want to assume anything, so I'm just going to say there wasn't much information about their childhood. She seemed to have had a very normal life. In high school, she went to a boarding school known as Kawede Girls Secondary School. Now, Brenda seemed to be responsible from what I could tell, because she was like the go-to babysitter for her siblings. Like, her parents would go out and they would leave Brenda home with her siblings. So she seemed to be responsible, because one thing about an African parent, they're not going to trust you if you're not trustworthy. Like, to leave you with the kids, kwani umeruka, it will never happen. So from that, I could just deduce that Brenda was somebody who was trusted by her family. In fact, the only person who was found to be suspicious in Brenda's family was her grandmother. Now, according to neighbors, judging from what I saw online, they said that Brenda's grandmother was very suspicious because she would visit like Mombasa a lot, and so people just assumed that she was like going there to visit Gigi's or like witches to do witchcraft and to help her. I don't know what. According to, I don't know what people go to Mombasa to do. Me, I thought people went to Mombasa to swim, but all of a sudden, if you visit Mombasa, it's a crime. Now, according to what people said, like, visiting Mombasa isn't the issue. It's that she used to visit a lot. Like, she used to go to Mombasa like a lot. So people just assumed that she was into witchcraft, so people didn't trust her. Now, this assumption that Brenda's granny was basically a witch. Actually, you guys, we need to get serious. We need to get fucking serious. Imagine you're just accusing someone of witchcraft, just like, for what? For what? Anyway. So this assumption that So this assumption that Brenda's grandmother was a witch really became very prevalent when a very serious turn happened in Brenda's family. Now, Brenda and her family were very, very healthy, very, very blessed by God. They were doing well. There was nothing visibly wrong. Physically, they were well. Everything was going well until one point when they all just started mysteriously dying. On the 14th of July 2021, 1-year-old Liam actually died. He was the youngest in the family, and his death was actually very mysterious. According to his parents, they just found him lying down, covered under a blanket. Liam was healthy. Liam was very, very healthy. So everybody wondered exactly what could be happening, what could have happened. But anyway, because there was no sign of struggle, no sign of any break-in, everybody just assumed that maybe this was a death by natural causes, and they let it be. Now, in the midst of the family grappling with the death of Liam, on the 7th of August, literally only just a month, the family also found Valeria Muthoni, aged 5, also dead in the house. This was also very, very suspicious. And by this point, it was clear, according to what, the people who found Valerie said, it was clear that this was not just a normal death. Especially because Valerie was also found only a month after her brother had been found dead in the same house. Now, at this point, everybody's starting to look at the grandmother. Everybody's looking at the granny thinking maybe the granny is sacrificing these children or like doing some witchcraft voodoo shit to make sure that, I don't know, she was using the children as a sacrifice. And things only got worse when on the 25th of September, their 7.5-year-old Rachel, who was the second born to Brenda, was also found dead. And Rachel's own was not something that you could just be like, oh, maybe it was an accident. No. So something was clearly going on here. This was not just something. And everybody is pointing fingers at who? The granny. Because why? People think she's a genie. You guys get serious. What? Anyway, by this point, every other sibling of Brenda's is dead except Brenda. So when Brenda comes home from school, her parents decide that she should go to her other grandmother's house, from what I could understand from what was being said, because they said that she should go to her paternal grandmother's. But then again, I'm like, isn't the paternal grandmother who is being accused of basically killing these kids? But from what I'm deducing, I think it's the other grandmother. So when she comes home from school, she is taken to visit her other grandmother, and that's where she was staying to basically avoid the genies, from what I could tell, because the parents were convinced something crazy was going on in their house. Now, on the 4th of August 2022, Brenda would come home from her secondary school for her midterm break, and she would go to the house of her grandmother. She went to stay with her grandmother, and her grandmother actually used to stay with one of her daughters along with one of her daughter's sons, so her grandson and her daughter. Now, this grandson obviously is Brenda's cousin, and his name is Martin Kigora Karongo, and he's aged 1 year and 8 months old. Like I said, Brenda seemed like a very trustworthy person, and like I told you guys, she was always like the go-to girl to leave her siblings with. Like, her parents would leave her siblings under her care because from what I can deduce, they thought she was a very responsible person. The similar thing happened at Brenda's granny's house. Brenda's aunt, basically Martin's mother, had a shop opposite the house, and she left Brenda in charge of her son Martin. So as she went to work, she left Brenda with Martin to take care of Martin for the day until she came back. However, as she was at the shop, like the shop was opposite the house, the granny's house, so she would still be able to see into the granny's house. So it wasn't a situation where she can't see, her son Martin playing. So she was still watching her son Martin play, but she wasn't like paying attention too much because, she's with Brenda. The son is with Brenda, so she wasn't too stressed. Now, as they were playing, Mercy Gatwiri, who is Martin's mother, was looking at Martin like in passing. Like, she would sell her stuff, then turn and look at Martin, and then go back to what she was doing. Now, when she went to look, on one occasion when she went to look, she saw that she couldn't see her son. And after a few minutes, she saw again she couldn't see her son. So she decides to go to the yard and ask Brenda if Brenda had seen her son Martin. Brenda says, oh yeah, he was just here. We were playing all of us together. But all of a sudden, I don't know where he is. I don't know where he is. Obviously, Martin's mother is not panicked yet. She thinks, oh, he's probably around here somewhere. Like, he's probably around here playing somewhere. And they now, both of them, decide to start looking for Martin. But lo and behold, Martin was nowhere to be seen. The two of them would spend literally the entirety of the day trying to find Martin. They're calling out to Martin, they can't find him. They're trying to reach him, they're trying to find this kid. This kid has suddenly grown legs and nobody can find him within the yard, within the neighborhood. Nobody has seen Martin. So basically, Martin's mother waits for Martin's father to get home, and she tells him immediately he arrives that our son is missing. I don't know where he is. And they now all start looking basically at night for Martin. All of them are searching, and it's at this point that the father gets an idea to look into the water, like the water tank, the water well, the water tank. Some sources said tank, some sources said well, but I'm guessing it's somewhere that they keep water that's basically deep. That ukianguka, that's that. As the family opens the water well, they actually find Martin inside the water well. And it seemed like Martin wasn't breathing because he was unresponsive. They're calling him, he's not responding. And as soon as they pull him out, they try to find a pulse, but sadly there was no pulse because Martin was dead. Now, the family in their grief decide to call a mortuary to take their young son's body to the mortuary. Obviously, as they're sending Martin's body to the mortuary, they're very confused as to why and even how he could have fallen into the water well. What could have even led him to, because it wasn't like he was a guest in that house. Hakuwa mgeni, he knew how things worked in the house. How could he have, how can, like, do you get what I mean? It's a very confusing affair, but by this point, the parents are just so taken aback that they just send the body to the mortuary, and they were going to think. As all of this is taking place, Miss Brenda was due to go back to school on the 19th of August. So she heads back to her parents' house on the 18th of August and leaves Martin's parents basically grieving their son's loss. And she is taken back to school on the 19th. However, on the 22nd, only like 2 days, because she went back to school on the 19th, 20, 21, 22, 3 days, let's see. On the 22nd of August 2021, Miss Brenda begs her teachers to get a phone call so that she can be able to call her parents at home. She tells them like it's a very important thing, to the point where she actually called her parents at home in the middle of the night. Well, not in the middle of the night, but at night. So she calls her parents, and her parents pick up this call. And the tale that Miss Brenda was singing was very, very, very worrisome. She calls her parents and she tells her parents that they should call her uncle, father to Martin, her cousin who had just died when she was home on midterm, and tell him that it was actually she who was responsible for killing her cousin Martin. Now, I want you to know how divisive this sounds, considering the fact that she was there when they were looking for the body, considering the fact that they asked her, do you know where this body is? Do you know where Martin is? She said no. She helped them look for that body the entire night. Considering all of that, this was very weird. This was very divisive. And so her parents are like, maybe this kid is going through some form of mental breakdown. Maybe we just need to go there and see what the hell exactly this kid is going through. So the parents get into the car the next day and they decide to drive over to the school to hear this story direct from the horse's mouth. They're like, maybe this girl just wants to come home for midterm. You know, like when you just can't believe what you're hearing. So you just come up with every other excuse except the fact that what you're hearing could be the facts, could be the actual facts of this case. Anywho, her parents make it down to the school, go to the principal's office, and they ask and request for their daughter to be brought to the principal's office. So their daughter is brought. And she didn't change that song. She stood right beside it. She said, yeah, I killed my cousin, and I would like you guys to call my uncle and tell him that it is I who is responsible for the death of my cousin. Now, Miss Girl is not changing her tune. She says that she is the one who actually committed that murder, and on top of that, she then now drops the real bomb that actually shook her parents to their core. This Miss Girl now tells her parents, basically she confesses to the fact that she not only murdered her cousin, but she also murdered, are you listening? She also murdered her siblings. How come? Her siblings that her parents had left her with and entrusted in her care, she had gone on ahead and murdered them. Now, this is how she decided to tell the tale and confess what she did. Now, Brenda says for her youngest brother, Liam, who was 1 year and 3 months old, I want you to always remember that, she claimed to have suffocated him with a pillow over his face and she held it there for, she says she held it there for probably like 4 minutes to make sure that, you know, he was really gone. She said she made sure that he had stopped breathing before she covered him up with a blanket and left him there for somebody to come and find. Brenda then said for Valeria, her sister aged 5 years old, who is the third born, she actually strangled Valeria with a pillow over her face, and then took off the pillow from her face and actually checked Valeria's pulse to make sure that Valeria was dead before getting up and leaving Valeria there for somebody to come and find her. She didn't even bother to cover Valeria the way she had bothered to cover her sadly now deceased brother Liam. She just left Valeria there for someone to find. For her sister Rachel, who was the 7-year-old, the second born basically, she actually killed Rachel the most gruesome, and I'll never understand why she decided to do this to Rachel, because what the hell? Actually, I don't understand why she decided to do all this, but Rachel's was very, very gruesome. So for Rachel, she says she strangled Rachel with her bare hands for 10 minutes. She then decided to put her 7-year-old sister's head into a basin and drown her. And after all that, she then decided to put, you guys, she then decided to boil hot water and pour it on Rachel's face. Anyway, as she's now confessing all of this to her parents, basically in front of her people at school, the teachers are listening to this and they're just like, no, ain't no fucking way. The teachers now tell the teachers now tell Brenda and her family that they gotta go. They tell her parents that she can't stay in school. Like, they actually can't just be sitting around and living with a potential murderess in their campus, because it's like, tomorrow we don't know what this girl will come and do. And the fact that this girl can do this and come and tell you all that she's done this is crazy. Like, that's very insane. So they tell her that she has gotta go. She's gotta go home with her parents. Her parents decide to take her home. This is on the 22nd of August 2021, like I said. However, although they took her home on the 22nd, ask me when they took her to the police, to the DCI on the 26th. Why? I don't understand. I don't know, maybe the travel was so far. I don't know why they would decide to take her on the 26th. I guess maybe they were processing exactly what happened, because that's a lot of stuff to tell your parent, like, I did this, I did that, you know, like, all that time you were up and about looking for your children, and, you know, blaming Granny for being a genie. Poor Granny. Poor Granny. Imagine, you know, that woman could have been lynched, because people are actually crazy like that. They can lynch her. It's not even a joke, you guys. Granny could have just lost her life like that for no reason, because this person has decided to go and murder her siblings. Anywho, so they take her to the DCI on the 26th, and her parents, her uncle, and her also accompanied. Her parents, her uncle, and her all went to the DCI actually, and they all recorded their statements. Now, as she was being interrogated by the DCI, they basically asked, like, girl, why would you do something like this? This is very sinister for a young girl of 15 to do. Why did you do this? And basically Brenda, to sum it all up, said that she felt some feeling of like excitement whenever she engaged in this activity, which is why she kept on doing it. She says like she felt good when she strangled them, especially like the feeling after. She says she felt really great after the strangling and the strangulation was done. So it's very much giving serial killer. Is giving, if this girl is let out, she's just gonna do it again, because this is like a very euphoric thing for her. And the fact that she did it to her siblings is what's really just making me shocked. I'm unsure if she was left in the custody of the DCI. I get very annoyed, because I feel like these cases, they didn't tell you like what happens when they go to trial. Like, did they go to trial? Like, was she arrested? Was she not? Like, is she in custody? Is she not? But yeah, that is the story of Miss Brenda Wanjiru Kaguru. I just have some things to say. First of all, something I've said the entire time, poor Granny. It's not a joke, because it seems like a joke if you're not from Kenya, like, oh, poor Granny, Granny doesn't deserve that. No, Granny really doesn't deserve that, because the facts of the case is that Granny could have literally very easily been lynched, considering the fact that they lynch women, that if they believe you to be a witch, they can lynch you. It was it was a very life or death situation for Granny, and nobody realizes that it was a life and death situation for Granny if Miss Brenda hadn't been caught. Second of, well, that's if the Granny story is true, because this one also, it's a shaky thing whether or not this is what neighbors were saying, because somebody said neighbors were saying, but we don't know if neighbors were saying, assuming they were. Anywho, I dare say, the second thing is, I dare say Brenda is a serial killer, according to Wikipedia, which is not the best source. Typically, a serial killer is typically a person who murders 3 or more persons, with the murders taking place over time, over more than a month, and including a significant period of time between them. She murdered her siblings from July, there was one in July, August, and September, right? And then she waited before she murdered Martin because she was in school. So I do think she does classify as a serial killer. That's what I think. That's what I think. Anyway guys, that is it from me today. I really hope you learned something here today. I hope you will operate with more caution, knowing what has happened here today. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video next week. If you want to see more of me throughout the week, I do post true crime videos over on my TikTok, and on my Instagram I post various things. Various things. I will see you guys next week, and this is the finished look of today. Bye.